Yeah, thank you, John. I just want to say a few words about what John just said in terms of some of the challenges that Uber experiences and has experienced. And what I want to say is that one of the things that we know is that no setting, no workplace, no campus, no place is immune from sexual abuse or sexual violence. Unfortunately, it's in our world, and I think that the sooner that we recognize it, no matter where we are, the better that we can take steps to try and put in measures to prevent, ultimately to prevent, but then also, should it happen, in order to address it in a way that keeps the survivors at the center and doesn't re-traumatize people, that doesn't seek to hide and those kinds of things. So I do want to give kudos to Uber. I know that they've been under attack quite a bit by some state bodies and others because of their unwillingness to share survivors' confidential information. And that is something that we at Valor have stood by because we feel very strongly that when a survivor comes forward and shares with whoever that is, whether it's whatever setting that they're in, workplace, filing a complaint in rideshare, whatever that may be, that it is that survivor that ultimately should have the choice about what happens with their information. That they do not, in coming forward, authorize their information to be shared and disseminated and be contacted out of the blue later. We have a real problem with that, and so we have stood by that, and we do appreciate that Uber is willing to work alongside us in that fight, because I think that whatever precedents get set, it's going to be important for other kinds of industries and sectors, and I think that it could have, should we not be able to protect that, which I don't believe would happen, it could really cause a chilling effect for survivors, because are they going to come forward if the next thing you know, their information is just out there and people are contacting them? We've fought hard for 50 years in this movement to protect survivors' rights and their confidentiality and their right to have anonymity when necessary, and to give them the power to make those choices and steps every step of the way. So we're going to continue in that. And in this case, we have the opportunity to work with a change influencer in Uber in helping us to make that case in the corporate sector. So thank you. And so now I'm going to share a few words with you just as a speaker. Again, I'm Sandra Henriquez, CEO of Valor. And after 2 years of gathering virtually, it truly is an honor to be here with you in person today, looking around at your neighbors. I see that, again, we have activists in the room, we have advocates in the room, we have grassroots leaders, we have rape crisis members, we have farm workers, we have janitorial service workers, we have all kinds of people in the room gathered together in one room for the first time since the pandemic, and this is a very powerful moment. Can I get my sisters that are either from Alianza Nacional de Campesinas, Líderes Campesinas, Ya Basta? There you go, they're all right over here. And I believe that we have about over 100 people in attendance from those groups, and so that really is something we feel really proud of, is that we are working with, connecting, lifting up the work that these other groups are doing, and working alongside them, and really, I think, amplifying their work, what they do, and helping to center them and the strategies that they use in terms of preventing violence. So welcome. My pleasure to have you here. Bienvenidas. So our theme for this year's conference is Collective Action for Equity. And that theme speaks to this moment, and it also speaks to all of you. We cannot eradicate oppression and end sexual violence alone. We are best when we are working together. Something that these past 2 years have truly elevated for me is we are best when we are working together, even when it's virtually, but when we are doing this together. And while we know that there is no way to eliminate all the COVID-19 risks, we want to gather, and we're taking all the precautions, and we appreciate that you're helping and working with us to do that. I want to talk a little bit about our tracks. And so we have a sex work track. And so when last year, many of you were here with us, and when I announced last year our name change from the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault to Valor, at this conference, I told you all that there was an urgency to change our name, and there was an urgency to change our mission. And that urgency was driven by a deep need in our organization and this movement to boldly step into a new identity that works not just to end sexual violence, but to confront and end the inequities in society they work as root causes, which allow violence to subsist in our communities. You know, there were people that thought we should pause and not move forward with our whole rebrand because of the pandemic. Can you imagine if we had? We'd still be waiting. We'd still be waiting. But I think that the pandemic showed us that there was really that urgency also. Why? Because in this time, all of the issues that we work against, they haven't disappeared. They've taken on different shape and form, but they've continued to persist. And I think that our name change and our change in our brand and our mission has really allowed us to step into different spaces and look at, as I said, the root causes. You know, not just we want to end sexual violence. Of course we want to end sexual violence. Of course we want to end sexual harassment. Of course we want to end all forms of sexual abuse. Of course we want to end all forms of violence. But in order to do that, we have to look at what the root causes. What is it that causes it? And we at Valor believe that a lot of it has to do with the fact that we live in a world that values some people over others, an inequitable world that allows us to, other people to abuse certain people, to believe that we can, and to not value those people's lives and their experiences, their whole experiences. And so this is why we really believe that it was urgent that we go ahead and move and change that. Could we have done that when we were CalCASA? Of course, and we did. But the name seemed to be a barrier, and this has really opened up for us the opportunity to get out into the world and create a lot of space, and I'll speak a little bit more about what we've been doing. We know that sexual violence does not exist in a vacuum, and we have not always gotten it right in advocating for survivors. And it's only our bravery to confront ourselves and to honor the courage of survivors and to listen that we now use to move forward. Last year, I remember that I told you that each of us needed to stop, that we needed to reflect and take bold action to transform our movement, to transform our strategies and approaches, and that those transformations are long overdue. This year, I remind you that bold accountability is not just a moment, but a lifelong commitment. It is in line with these values that I am proud to announce an entire track on sex work and sexual violence prevention and advocacy. We at Valor and across the movement have always strived to create a world free from sexual violence. Our commitment to survivors has never changed, but as we learn more about ourselves, about oppressive systems, and the needs of those most impacted by violence, particularly survivors of color and/or marginalized groups, our strategies must change. Valor is in the process of learning. We are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and we've all made and continue to make mistakes in our fight to advance equity. And while we do not know everything, we do know this. We know that criminalization will not end sexual violence. Let's do a round of applause on that. Thank you. The movement has come a long way from where it was when I started over 30 years ago. We now recognize that relying on criminalization as the primary solution to gender-based violence targets, prosecutes, and detains people of color while failing the majority of survivors. We understand that gender-based violence is born from and sustains off of power and control. When survivors are afraid for their safety of being prosecuted or punished, they are less likely to come forward, and we know that. We are learning that criminalization contributes to a lack of safety, isolation, and stigma against sex workers, leading to an increase in violence without redress for justice or accountability. We also know that as a movement, our only way forward is through listening to the voices of those who are most impacted by violence. So we have to listen, and that's part of what we're here this next 2 days for, is to listen, because we know we don't have all the answers. We know there are lots of things we don't know about, but we want to bring together the voices that were going to help us to learn and to engage and to partner, hopefully. If we are not centering the voices and experiences of Black, Brown, Native, trans, disabled, and immigrant survivors in our approaches and strategies to end sexual violence, then I'm sorry, but we are not doing our jobs. Valor is not the expert on sex work. We are learning and listening like all of you. So that's why we're using our platform to lift up the voices that are. Sex workers, allies, and advocates like those from Decrim Sex Work California, Marcha de las Putex San Francisco, and Bay Area Women Against Rape, and more are here this week, sharing their bravery and expertise with us. It is our job to listen to them, to confront ourselves and our past mistakes, and to follow their leadership in creating a world that promotes the health and safety of sex workers, their families, and communities. We are all at different stages in our journeys of learning, both professionally and personally. It doesn't matter how you walked into this room. What matters is how you continue forward. So I hope that you will take the next couple of days to really take information in and hopefully walk out differently. No matter where you are in this journey, I invite you to exist as you are in this space and to join me in learning and moving forward bravely and fearlessly. We love that word here at Valor, fearlessly. Why? Because it doesn't mean we're not afraid to make mistakes. It doesn't mean we're not afraid to take on difficult things. It just means that we're willing to do it because it's so important. So we just step into that and we just do it, move forward. Yeah, that's my favorite word with regards to our work. Thanks, Betty. Also, again, I've been in the movement for over 30 years. I've seen us grow and change, and I'm proud of the commitment we have today and where we are headed. We've had that commitment forever, but it's really great to see so many people that have been around for a long time and those that have joined that come and have a great commitment, and to see where we're headed, what that change in the different generations brings. I've seen us confront racism, sexism, heterosexism, and biases within our field and in our communities. Looking around this room today, we are joined by many monolingual Spanish speakers, as I mentioned, and from those various industries in agriculture, and different immigrant rights advocates. We are joined by our rape crisis centers, not just from California, but also across the country. We follow diverse leadership from survivors and sex workers, scholars, activists, and advocates, from those leading evidence-informed approaches to violence prevention to those working to advance equity and sexual violence in new and innovative ways. We are all here together, committed to our collective action for equity. But this is just the start. While we gather with our colleagues and friends in this room, outside of this room, states, governments, and systems continue to systematically attack our human rights. While we gather here in California, our colleagues at rape crisis centers across the nation are scrambling to provide care to survivors of sexual assault who are now forced to carry their pregnancies to term because 5 men made a decision that will change the lives of 165 million women and pregnant people. A decision that is steeped in patriarchy and rooted in power and control. A decision that we in this movement must stand against. In June, I know that Valor, through our social media, put out a statement, then we had conversations, and we told you all that we are pissed. We told you that no matter what the rhetoric, anti-abortion politics choose to spout, that we know the reality, that this is not a fight for life. This is a fight for power. Power over everyone who is not white, cisgender, wealthy, and the list goes on. Everyone who is not that. This is a fight for all of us, and one that we all need to get in. We all need to. Make no mistake, when this country fights for power, the people who are most hurt are our Black, brown, Native, and queer neighbors. Those with disabilities, those are the people that are most hurt. The right to bodily autonomy has never been a universal right in this country. We know that. Many of us know that, especially for those without money or access or who have experienced the brunt of racist policies and practices in the healthcare system. We, as a movement to advance equity and end sexual violence, must root ourselves in reproductive justice, centering the values of human rights, the human right to bodily autonomy and to be able to parent children, in safe and equitable environments. That is our work. We must connect to other issues. The time for silos around our movements, that time is long over. Today, the fight for refugee rights is the fight for reproductive justice, is the fight for LGBTQ rights. It is the fight to end sexual violence. We have to work across movements. We have to work across movements. We have to work across movements, everyone. We got to get out of our corners. We have to work across movements. We have to partner. People would get mad at us. Why are you working with the NFL? Why are you working with Uber? Why are you working with the campesinas? Why? You know why? Because we have to work across movements. We have to come together. We have to recognize it is all of our issue. It is all of our fight. So I invite you to do that with us. Now that I went off on my little... And I think that one of the reasons that I really, that we believe this is that we know that they really aren't just coming for one of us. They aren't just coming for one group. They're coming for all of us. And the people who will suffer the most are those at the intersections of all of our movements. Those are the people that will suffer the most, and that is why we have to get in this all in. Can't stand on the sidelines. We have to get all in now. Despite all that is happening outside of this room right now, I'm feeling hopeful. And I'm definitely feeling committed to each of you and to this movement. Because in spite of everything that our people have faced, in spite of what we have faced and what we continue to face, we are here. We are here coming together to look at what we can do and how we can move forward. In June, we told you that we needed to grieve, and we did, we have, and we continue to do so. We also told you that we were coming back to continue our righteous fight, and that's part of what we're doing here today, this week, and moving forward. That we will continue to build solidarity across movements to advance equity, and that is exactly what we have the opportunity to do here in the next couple of days, this week, and moving forward. This week we gather statewide. We will connect with each other and take what we learned back to our communities, but we won't stop there. Valor is proud to host the 2023 National Sexual Assault Conference, where we will be gathering with our colleagues across the country in San Francisco. Please join us. We'll have at least 2,000 people there next year in San Francisco, so it will sell out. Please join us. I look forward to connecting with each of you this week. I know that the only way forward is together. How is it? We're moving forward, people? Come on, say it. Tell me. Together. Let's go. Let's do it. And again, I'm deeply honored to stand in collective action for equity with each and every one of you. And thank you so much. Those are my opening comments. Thank you, thank you, thank you.